All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming by. We're doing another absolutely fun painting here. We're going to do a street scene, and that's going to be one of those sunny, beautiful street scenes. This is, I think this is in California, the photograph I have. I think it did say California on the photograph. So we're just going to have a fun time doing the Alla Prima method. We're going to paint in the darks first. Once we get all our darks in, then we're going to go and start up with our medium tonal values here underneath these beautiful arcades and these arches here. So the middle tones go in next, and then we finally, toward the latter part of the painting, we get into the figures. We do those. We get the light washes in first, and then we do some really fine tuning with some darker washes with the hair and some of the clothing and clothing details and shoes. We do that after the figures dry with that first wash on the clothing. Let that dry 100%, and then we come in and do the final details of the hair and sunglasses and the bow tie and all the cool stuff like that. And we do this distant figure as well. And then toward the very, very end of the painting, we just go in and do those really light washes of shadows on these beautiful buildings here, the shadows of the coping stones on top of all these walls in the arcade. And we finish up with some washes across the street area here and sidewalks. This is just a fun painting. All of you can do it. It's just a matter of going step by step. So join along with us here. We're going to go step by step and have a great time painting this wonderful scene. Okay, so we'll start up in just a second with the pencil drawing. All right, we're getting started here with our painting portion. And the first thing I'm going to do is, you've seen the finished painting in the beginning when we first started, so that's pretty much we'll work from that. If you're going to do this painting, you do the drawing first, obviously the pencil drawing, and then you're going to work from those from the beginning of the video. And I'm going to do a video in the very near future where I'm going to kind of show different ways you can use your phone or your laptop to do screen capture so that you can actually save these pictures to your electronic devices, your computer, your laptop, your phone. Also go over some of the other places you can also look up on YouTube. This way, if you want to have a larger screen capture of this painting, you can do that as well by putting it onto your TV even. You can have your TV plugged into your laptop so you can have a larger rendition of it, as if you're painting actually outdoors and maybe like out in the the actual scene itself outdoors. So if you have a larger TV, like a panel TV, that can be really helpful. It all depends on what you have at home. But let's get started with the painting, and we're going to go with a mixture of greens, and so we'll start off with some sap green here, and then some raw umber. So sap green and raw umber makes a really beautiful green. We can also put in some yellow ochre. That works great. And then I kind of try to mix it around a little bit, and I'll go into a little bit of the French ultramarine blue to give us a little bit of a cool variation to those greens like that. And I think if you mix, basically again, just the sap green, lots of raw umber, some yellow ochre, and then a little bit of the French ultramarine blue, you're going to have yourself a really good variety of greens where you can create those warm and cool variations within your greens. So we're going to start out, and I'm going to we're going to paint Alla Prima. So this is an Alla Prima method where we're just going to start out and put our darks in first. And if we get our darks in first, I'll pick up some golds and some greens, and there's some blues mixed in there, and it all kind of, I'll leave some And that's all. I'm just placing the paint. So you can just mix up, like I did here, mix up a good amount of color. And you're just going to take your brush, and you really don't need to go into any water at all, or because you're just going to go straight paint right out of your mixing. And since we're using all one of these we're using this basic mixture the whole way through here on this large area of trees that we have in the top section of our painting. So that's just a good thing to remember. If you can paint and tackle one large section, it might be better doing it that way than trying to keep rinsing and change. Like if you can just get your one mixture going, and then you just say to yourself, okay, I'm going to tackle try to get all of the, I'll get a little bit of burnt sienna in there too, just a little bit we're going to go in there and try to get all the colors that are all the same, pretty much, all similar. And then we might go with a little bit of a darker area here, more blue. So that you can go in and add darker blue. So you can have a fun time with this, and you're not stressing too much because you're just basically continuing to work right from here, and that's all you really have to worry about. And then over here, and this will be, I'm painting around this tree so that it appears. We talk about the method of negative shape painting, where you paint around an object and then it appears when you paint around it. So right now we're painting around this. This is a palm tree, so we're painting around the palm trunk of the tree here. And as we paint around it, it appears, and then we start to see this is the trunk of the tree, of a palm tree. So we're painting around it, negative shape painting. So that's what that's the term we use in watercolors. Many of you are very familiar with that terminology. So again, you're seeing me here. I'm kind of just getting the greens, the leaves of the trees, the bushes, the branches. These are a little bit darker over here, and so I just add some. You can also do a little finger painting if you want, occasionally, just to make a little bit of a variation in the texture of the paint. And I'll maybe splash just a little bit too over here. Maybe a little splashing, just a couple. And we always recall we can go back in a little bit later in the when we're sort of a little bit later, once this all dries and we're kind of done painting in this section, we can come back later and maybe do a couple little more fine tuning with some branches and some twigs and things. But for right now, as long as we get the main idea of all the dark branches and leaves and palm tree shapes and things, if we get that here, we're going to be in good shape. And I think that's pretty good. So we've done quite a bit already. We've gotten some really good darks, and then we're going to take those same repeating colors, and we're going to go in and do some darker passages over here underneath the arcades, the arches here. Like that. And then maybe I'll use a little cerulean blue, cobalt blue, just to have a little coolness in there. So just that blue, added blue mixture on top of the brownish green mix inside that area there to give it that little more of a cooler feel there. And then we're going to do some bushes that are sort of in front of this. So there's some trees and bushes in front of this part of the archway here where the arcade is. And we just want to capture that. And there's some darker darks there. Maybe some blue and brown, burnt umber. And that's maybe a more of a shadow kind of look for some branches and things like that. And again, we're going to go back with a medium tone or medium wash on some of these areas that we left white. Like we left these trees white paper. We painted around them, like we said. We paint around an object, and then the object appears. So we did negative shade painting around these tree trunks here. And over here, this tree, the smaller tree over here, we painted around it. And we'll come back and we'll add a lighter wash to that later. So that's how we're going to have an advantage by leaving this all dry. And then once that dries 100%, these darker colors, then we can go over top and add another bit of color to our trees and add more details versus trying to paint everything in this one section at one time. We're going to let this tree trunks stay white paper, and then we'll go over it a little bit later once we're finished doing more of the darker darks in this painting. So essentially our modus operandi here is we're getting the darkest darks into this painting first, and then we can start to work our lighter tonal values into the painting. So that's our key here. We're going to take a quick break. I'd like to take a lot of breaks, and especially when we start painting. Painting takes a lot of concentration, and let's take breaks as we go. And this way you always know if you're taking a break, you'll be a little more focused when you come in after a 5 or 10 minute break. And then when you start working again, you're not, maybe you'll be less likely to paint over something like paint over this tree trunk, or maybe start painting into some other section you're supposed to leave lighter. That happens less if you're taking breaks as you go, because then you're a little fresher, the concentration's a little better. But not everyone needs as much breaks, so you find out what your happy medium is for taking breaks, what you feel is necessary. But I like to say every 10, 15 minutes or 20 minutes, I'll try to take a break if it's something like this where we have a lot of stuff going on in this painting where we have to really be focused. Okay, I'll be right back and we'll continue on with this painting. All right, we are getting back into our painting here. We're just going to continue with our darks, and we took a break for about 10-15 minutes, so this is all dry now for the most part. So we could go back in and start doing some of these tree trunks here, the palm trees and so forth, but I think we're just going to let that sit for now. Let's try to get our darkest darks in the painting. So right now I can see I'm going to need a smaller brush. That was a 6 Raphael 6 round brush that I started with, and then I'm going to switch over to a Da Vinci travel brush number 5. It's a little smaller, and this way I can paint this over here. This is another archway across in the distance, across the road, maybe 50, 75 yards or so across the way. And there's some and I'm just rinsing my brush, and I dry off my brush on a little bit of a tissue so I don't have too much water on there. And then we'll do some cooler blues inside this arcade here. So there's going to be some light in there, little bits of light, and there's also a figure, so maybe we'll do the figure next. Let's see what we have there. And So we have a small figure in the distance there. I'll make a little bit of a brownish hair. Like that. That looks pretty good. And we can also use some of our greens here. There's some bushes over there. And some more of that French ultramarine blue. And there's some more bushes on the right side of this here. So there's like a pathway, like a sidewalk that goes into this arcade area. And so we just put in some happy bushes over here on the right hand side. And that looks fine. We'll do some shadowing later for the sidewalk areas. And let's see what else we can do here. Maybe we'll start doing some of these bushes here. And I'll just mix in some more yellow ochre and into the green mix there. And then a couple. It's good to just get a few pointy branches and things like that, just to give it that feel of the bush there. And some trees, and then over here we have some darks. Okay, that looks good. And now we're going to start working in more mediums, medium tonal values, cooler, so a little more blue. That makes a good kind of a grayish mix of French ultramarine blue and some burnt sienna. Some cool, you can make it a cooler gray like that. If you want to make it warmer, you would just add a little more burnt sienna, so you can kind of adjust the mixture as you go. And I think there's some cool areas in here in the arcade area. And I don't really get too fussy in the arcade. It's kind of in the background there, but I am considering some warm and cool, so I add some gold, some yellow ochre type washes. There's going to be some light along there. It's always good to add some warm and cool everywhere. So you can see I'm doing warm and cool. I'm mixing these grays, and they look pretty good. And then there's some cooler shadows on the foreground, so more blue, darker. And then just a couple of distant colors there, and some okay, so we have you can always darken up if you have a little bit of time to darken up your washes here, but you can't wait too long. And it also depends on your paper. If you have really good paper you're using, you have more time to do this. Which we're doing right now is adding in a little bit of a darker wash over the top of this one as it's still moist and wet, the paper, with our original wash. But if the paper isn't a really good quality paper, you'll find that when you go to do that, it'll tend to get really spotty looking and have awkward looking, unpleasant marks on the paper if you're trying to go over with a second wash quickly as you're working. So kind of the main thing is to remember is if you're using top quality papers, you'll be able to paint longer with your washes that you're working with at the present time as you're working. If you're using a little bit less expensive paper, maybe a student grade paper, you're going to find that it might be a little more difficult to do the secondary washes as you're going. So in that case, you would just probably try to get your first wash in first and then just let it dry, and then you can come back over an hour or two later, or if you blow dry it, you can go over with another wash on top, but it would have to be 100% dry, I think, for it to really work well. So that's just a kind of an interesting tidbit of things that I've learned going through the years of painting. Those additional washes when the paper is still damp and wet from a wash, it's hard to get in a second wash if it's maybe like a student grade paper. But if you're using like Arches or Fabriano or maybe Buckingford or some other top brands that are the expensive ones, they do perform better. You can work on them a lot while it's still damp. So that's pretty much a good rule of thumb to think of. And now I'm going to just go in with some cobalt blue, and I'll do some sky washes over here. I want to get that feeling of blue sky back here. And there's another building over here on this side here where this white paper is, so we're not going to have an opportunity really to put sky there. So that's why I like to do this now. Again, get in that blue sky wash, and it's also here. So that kind of gives us that feel of we can see the blue sky kind of peeking through the branches and things. That gives it a real three-dimensional feel. And then we could change this too if we wanted to. You can make an executive decision, get a larger brush, and then just say to yourself, I'm going to make this a sky up here versus a building. So you can change not all the time, but once in a while you can say, I think it would look better if I did a building over here like this, and this will be the sky all the way through like that. So I just decided let me paint this sky in versus leaving it a tall building and make this building more closer to the ground where the roof is right here. And then that kind of gives me more sky. I like the feel of sky in this painting, so I wanted to have that in there. Okay, let's take a quick break, and we'll come right back, keep working on this. It's going really well. You can see I'm really tackling all the darks first, and now I'm starting to get into my lighter tonal values, my lighter washes with the sky and these shadows in here, which are somewhat illuminated from the brightness of the sun coming through the arcade. So it's not too dark in these arcades here. And the same with over here. This one's looking fine in the distance. And I think this is really going well so far. We have some more shadowing to do with our architecture on our buildings, but other than that, and we're going to do our figures, of course. We're going to have a lot of fun doing our figures. And once we kind of get these last few components done in this painting, you're going to see it's going to look absolutely wonderful, all completed, a gorgeous scene. And I always mention too, if you like these paintings, please consider subscribing. On the right hand side down below here, you'll see the subscribe button. You just click that, and then this way you'll always see my videos coming in every week, so you can see that. You'll be able to click on them, check them out. You'll get them automatically on your YouTube channel when you click onto your YouTube channel and you go to your YouTube application on your device. You'll see my paintings. They'll be right there for you to check out. You can look at them, see if you might want to paint them, draw and paint them. It's all up to you. I always like to change my subject matter, so as you know, one week we might be doing architecture and scenes like a cityscape scene like this, street scene. The next week we might do figures, and then after that we'll do flowers. We're always changing our subject matter, so everyone gets everyone feels like they're getting to paint their favorite subject matter, every once in a while. You can also go back into my archives. I've got hundreds of archived videos. So if you really like boats or you really like flowers, I probably have 40 or 50 of each of those style paintings in my archives on YouTube. So you can always go back and check those older videos out. It's totally up to you. If you just want to stay with what we're doing right now, that's fine. But again, if you're subscribing and hitting the notification bell, you'll be getting all my latest videos, and I'm excited you're here, and I'm certainly glad all the new people that are coming in. The Extreme Beginners series is really popular on my channel, and we're just doing a lot of videos too for people that are just starting out. So if you're just starting out in watercolor, watch these videos too. You'll learn a lot, and the more you see things over and over, you're going to recall it more. You're going to remember it. It'll be logged in your memory bank in your brain. You'll just have so much more watercolor paintings. Like a lot of it's kind of memorization, and after a while, if you're looking at the same videos and you look at my channel all the time, you'll see my same techniques I use, my same methods over and over and over. And the more you watch them, you'll just get used to them, and then they'll just become part of your technique and your style as you paint. And you can always change as you go. If you want to maybe do something different than I do, that's fine too. I encourage everybody to do what you feel is best for you in your painting. And if you want to branch out and do some different style things, fine. But it is good to maybe in the beginning when you're first painting, if you want to kind of stick to the same thing I'm doing, and this way you'll get your basic technique down, and then from there you can change things and kind of custom tailor it to your style of what you want to do. So again, thanks again so much for coming by and watching our video, and we're going to come right back and we're going to start doing our shadows on our architecture. We're going to do our figures here, and we'll do a little bit of detail work to our branches and our trees over here, and you'll see that this is going to look absolutely wonderful when we're completed a nice sunny beautiful day in the California area with some gorgeous architecture and a street scene with fun figures here. We're going to have lots of fun, and let's finish this up in maybe the next 20 minutes to a half an hour. We should be finished up, and you'll have a great painting under your belt. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, our break time is over, and we're back working on our gorgeous street scene here. So again, we just, as we get started back again, we definitely noticed that we did this Alla Prima. We're painting it all at one time. We're not really doing glazings. One glazing, let it dry 100%, glaze a second time, let it dry 100%, and then third, we're not doing the glazing method. We're doing the Alla Prima method. Just means we're painting this all at one time. And we said that the main thing with the Alla Prima method is good success usually is if you start out with your darks first. So does that make sense? If you start with your darks first, you're going to tend to have an easier time as you're working through your painting to capture the correct lighter tonal values. Like here in this arcade area, they're middle tonal values, so they're not as dark as these darks here. They're a little bit lighter, and so they're a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier to paint these and create these middle tones or middle tonal values in your painting when you have your darks on the paper. So it kind of gives you a little bit of like a graduated step towards the lighter tonal values. So you got your really dark darks, you start with those, and then you start getting in your middle tonal values. And you can also, do more darks if you want as you're going, but just for the most part, your main first step is your darks, and we did that. We accomplished that with our picture, our painting so far, and we're going to continue here. And I think what we'll do next is maybe we'll do some figures here. So we're going to go with some of that gray mixture. We're just going to stick with that. That looks good, and I think we're going to make a really nice gray suit for this gentleman here. So he's going to have a gray suit, and maybe we'll go a little darker over here. We'll give it a little bit of a darker tone there, and then we'll stick with the lighter tones over here. And same here. Okay, so we have maybe a little darker burnt sienna and French ultramarine blue. It gives us a good gray. And again, we were using French ultramarine here in the greens, so that'll look good. And what I'm trying to do is just get a little darker tone there on that side of his pants there. And I think that looks pretty good. And then we're going to do some blue here, some blue shorts maybe. And then maybe a little grayish tone there for the shirt for our young boy here. He's got a t-shirt on, so we're just going to kind of work our ideas. When we were first drawing this, we're kind of going back to when we were first drawing this scene, and we were just saying, this is maybe a father and a son here. They're walking together on this nice sunny day. And then here we have a few more figures walking toward the arcade, and we have our figure we painted over here already in the distance. That was more simple. Just a couple quick bits of color over there. And we're going to go with maybe a little more of a bluish vest maybe here. Let's see what we have. Maybe we'll do a blue vest or a sweater of some sort. Like that. And you can leave these very loose looking, the figures. You don't have to get into too many details. I'll go with some flesh tones, cadmium red, and yellow ochre. Cadmium red, yellow ochre gives us a good flesh tone, so we're going to do there, and we'll do a flesh tone here, and some flesh tones with the hands. And if you think you went over something and you want to correct it a little bit, and not a big deal, you can do that. And some more here. And with some we'll have some shoes here. And I'm toning this down. You can see I'm kind of using the grays here. More of the grayish blues, like I'm not getting really doing anything too drastic. With colors, I'm keeping it kind of, everything is subdued. And we have some. And a really good thing I forgot to mention here, when you do your figures, if you can get in your first washes and then let those dry, and then you come back and then you can do like the hair, maybe a little bit of brown hair on the top of the figure here and some brown hair for the child, and maybe even some of the shoes or some more details. Maybe we'll put a tie on this figure here. You want to let the figures dry first, though, for about 20 minutes or half an hour until it gets really dry. Because if you keep adding more details to these figures, then all the paint starts to blossom and balloon and sort of like become too diffused, and you can't get good details. Does that make sense? So it's sort of like the glazing technique in a sense. When you're doing figures, you want to get in a first go for your figures, maybe your clothes, and a little bit of color for the faces and the flesh tones. Then you let that dry 100% for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and you can still work on the other parts of the painting. And then once you see it's really dry, then you can go back in and put in like a tie, maybe a little bit of hair. You'll see we're going to do that, but we're going to let this dry though first. We don't want to keep going over areas we just painted because that's still wet, and the next bit of paint we put on top of wet paint can be a problem. So that's why we let things dry to our advantage. So we're going to continue here, and I can see some other things. Let's do the other figures here, maybe. I think we'll go with this figure here. I'm going to do some pants. There. And then maybe the woman's dress here is going to be a golden color here with maybe some red. So let's do that. Let's make a nice golden color dress. And maybe there's some light on there too. Maybe we'll put a little bit of a alizarin crimson to keep that a little bit lighter there. I rinse off my brush, I dry off my brush, and then I just do that. And then we can do more flesh tones for the female's legs. And we like that. And then maybe we'll go with some brown here. Now with this, since we didn't do a lot of detail, we could leave it like that, just a little bit of hair. And then this figure here, the gentleman, I think we could maybe do the same thing, maybe a little bit darker hair, or maybe some blonde hair. Maybe we'll go with maybe a hat. Let's do a hat. So he's got a cap on there, and then maybe some brown here. And maybe we'll go with some some stripes on the shirt here. And you can always lift up a little bit of paint and redo your darks. So I might go with some darker hair here, some like black hair. And I'll just do that. Like that. Okay, so those two figures look good. And maybe some shoes here. Okay, that looks good. So we pretty much have our figures completed here in the foreground. This is, again, sort of dry now, so we can go in and do a little more detail. I'm going to switch to my number 5 brush to get some more details. I'm going to do a bow tie maybe here. Let's do a bow tie. That might look interesting. So let's do that. So that's good. That looks good. Bow tie there. Might have to make it a little larger, like that. And we'll do the hair. And we could even do a couple. We could do a nose, maybe a nose shape there, and a couple eye sockets. And if it looks okay, maybe he's got some black glasses on. Let's do some sunglasses. All right. So this looks fine. Let's get some more of these over here. The details of the bushes over here. A little bit of the yellow ochre mixed in there. A little bit of a golden color there for the a little bit of light we leave on the top. Can you see that? We leave a little bit of light on the tops of this bush over here just to give it a little extra sparkle. Maybe we go with a little bit of the darker greens down here at the bottom, so we kind of have that feeling of the light coming across the tops of the bushes over here, and then maybe we have some more shadow colors here, like that. And then those shadow colors tie into this over here. That looks good. And some dark, maybe some darker bits down here again. Some dark, you can add some more darks as you go. And also too, we can do some dark hair for our figure here, for the young boy, he's looking up. Like that, and that's fine. Maybe we can add a bit of maybe he has a stripe on his shirt, so we're going to do a little stripe on his shirt there. Okay. A fun, exciting street scene here. We're working our washes as we go. Now here in the distance on this building, we did minimize this building. We made it into a smaller building. So I'm going to put a coping stone across the top of that building, and we'll put a shadow underneath it, like under there. And I think that's all we would need over here. I don't want to go too much detail over here. It's sort of on the side of the picture, and over here we have a little more details, and we're going to do these quickly too. You're going to see we're going to do shadowing here in just a second. But let's keep working our middle tone washes. So it's a good time to take just a quick break again. We've we did the figures here, which that takes some time. You got to be finesse your figures. Don't try rushing them. Again, it's better off if you take time on your figures and do the first wash maybe of the lighter washes first, the light tones, then let that dry 100%, and then go in and do your darker tones like I did. So you recall I did the man's suit here, which was like a light grayish color. We mixed it with our grayish mix which was French ultramarine and burnt sienna, where you get a nice gray mix for that. And we've been using those colors throughout. When we got that grayish color suit, we got that in. And then we let that dry 100%. And then we came back once it was dry, and we did that little bit of a vest here, the darker blue vest, bow tie, and some hair, and some sunglasses. And we're going to make those sunglasses a little darker now. And what else can we do? We can add a little darker shadow maybe under here. And I think that looks good. And again, take your time, let everything dry. If you're going to do a couple different glazings for your figures, it works so much better. And I think that's really a key thing you want to focus in on this painting, especially if you're doing these figures. Let the washes dry, and then go in with your darker details after that, like the hair and the bow tie and the shoes and the vest and the stripes on the shirt, and the hair on the small child here. So all those things, do it in two glazings, and you'll be fine. You'll have much better time with that. All right, so we'll take a quick break. And again, I always mention, if you're having good success and you're happy with this channel, my channel here, our channel, please hit the subscribe button. We'll just keep coming back, and we'll keep working week after week, month after month, and year after year, and your paintings will get continually better over that amount of time. So if you're here for 6 months, your paintings are going to look so much better after 6 months, and after a year, wow, you're going to see some really great improvements with your paintings. So that's why I say, if you subscribe and you're watching each week as we do new paintings, even if you don't like the painting and you don't want to actually paint or draw that specific painting we're doing that week, at least if you're watching it full through, you're learning all the terms, the methods, the techniques, the colors. You'll start to memorize the whole basic process that we use here on my channel, and that will get you to the next level where you're going to be creating better paintings all the time. Okay? All right, I'm going to be right back. And again, if you haven't subscribed, right on the right-hand side below here, you hit that subscribe button, and this way you'll be getting videos every week as we go, and you'll have a great time with us all. Okay? We'll see you in just a second. Break time is over, and we're back here. We're going to continue on here. Let's get some things going here. I think let's do the palm tree over here. Raw umber and a little bit of sap green. And yellow ochre and some blue. So we're using the same colors we used before. And a little bit of burnt umber, I think, too. And then we're just going to start going in here. We're just doing some cross hatching like this. Just some. I rinse off my brush, dry off the brush, the water off the brush on a tissue, and then I can slightly put a wash on like that, a little bit of a lighter wash as I'm going, and then I go back in to get this here, and we're just going to do some more. And again, we're not going to get too fussy with anything, right? Just see how I'm doing crosses like that, X's across there, and I think that looks good. And maybe a little bit of raw umber and some burnt sienna. Maybe a little bit of, just a little bit of color in there with some of the burnt sienna. Over on the left side, the light's coming from here. We have our light insignia, so we know most of our light's going to be on the left side of that tree, of that palm tree, and I think that looks good. Maybe I will go with a little more sap green and raw umber and sap green and a little bit of blue and a little bit of burnt sienna. I just want to see if I can fuse it into there a little bit. So I want to kind of just fuse it together a little bit with the other leaves to kind of camouflage it a little bit, like so it doesn't just look like, you know, kind of blend it in with the tones. That looks better. Here, maybe I'll just, with this one here, maybe I'll go with just a couple grayish looking tonal values there. We can see that they're lighter. Maybe a little bit of green on that one and that too. And that looks good. Okay, and then let's get some burnt sienna, French ultramarine blue, for some grayish mix. I think we'll use that for that. Now's a good time. We can clean up our palette just a little bit. We know the colors we've been mixing all along. We haven't used a tremendous amount of colors, just the basic 5 or 6 colors, I think, really. Someone can challenge me out there with that. I think it was 5 or 6 colors we've really been using, except for maybe the flesh tones we added in for the figures. But we'll start off, we'll have that little bit of our gray mix there on the right. And we're going to go back and probably mix some more of the same colors, of course. But we're just going to start out fresh, clean up our palette a little bit. And then let's go with some yellow ochre and some raw umber, and then some French ultramarine blue too there. Let's see if we can get some some shadow. Let's do some shadow over here like that. Like that. And a little bit of the raw umber and yellow ochre on the walls here. These beautiful stucco walls. So we want to add a little color to them, but not everywhere. So I'll put some yellow stucco. Maybe a little bit of grayish tone there. And we'll do a little more up here. Yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and French ultramarine blue. Okay, and a little bit of shadow there. And then we can do some more color over here. So I'm just trying to get in some shadowing. And here's some more shadow along here. And then maybe some raw umber. We add some warm and cool everywhere. So here we're looking at warm and cool everywhere. I'm going to add some blue to that. And then we have some raw umber, and that looks like that's there. And maybe here there's another bit of detail with the golden colors, and there's some more under here that's shadowing. And we're just trying to get in some more shadows here. Try to make them more bluish. And there's some more shadows over here, mystery shadows coming from outside the painting. That could be some trees over there, so I can splash a little bit. That might be some leaves of trees, so I splash on a little bit of leaves of trees. You can leave that out if you want. You don't have to splash if you don't like that. I know some of you like the splashing, some of you don't. So you put it into your paintings if you want to, and it's all up to you what kind of finished look you want for your painting. I'm going to do the roadway over here, which is from this side over here, and I'll put a little bit of warmth in there too, like that. And then there's a little bit of shadows over here too. It looks like we have some shadows over here from the left side. Those are mystery shadows, we call them. They're coming from outside where we can see, but we see there's some shadowing there. There's another shadow here. So there's another shadow there. And then maybe there's a little more raw umber, there's some warmth here, concrete. And then if you want, you can, if you see a situation where you can maybe add an interesting, a little bit of light, you can peel a piece of paper towel and fold it up like this. And then maybe you can add like a bit of light here and lift up like that. And then maybe over here too. So I take my paper towel and just fold it into like a square. And then maybe I can just take this like this and so there's like a shadow running across the picture like that, a beam of light. So the beam of light comes across this way and it lifts up and makes the road a little bit lighter there. So you can add those little extra things into your painting if you like. This here I meant to leave as a shadow, so that okay. And then we can make a little more shapes in here to kind of give this a little more, but we're really looking good now. I think we're almost complete now, so I just added in a few more darks maybe. Maybe toward the side of the painting we wouldn't want that too dark, so I'll lift that up actually. I'm having a second idea here that it's probably better not to have any dark shadows at the sides of the painting. We want the focus to be in the center of the painting more than the outside edges. So, for this painting anyway. And I'm just doing a couple last minute details there. That's fine. A little more color, just a little bit on these stone and stucco walls. And I think we have a nicely done painting here. I think everything looks fine. I think the only thing we might do here is, I think we'll leave it at the way it is. I think it's fine. We can, sometimes it's better to leave something a little bit underdone than go over with too many details, if that makes sense. Sometimes now if I started going in and say, let me add a little more figures, or let me add some more darks or lights, or let me fix this or fix that, then it gets to be overworked, and then it doesn't have a really beautiful look of just like a painting that's done quickly, and then it's fresh looking, it's not overworked, and the overall look will be good. Again, if we go in and try to do a lot more details now, at this point we're going to sort of go over that line, so to speak, of adding too many details. So let's remember that you can always, a day or two later or a week later, go in and maybe do a few things that you think you might want to add, but better to leave it underdone and look at it the next day or so, and then you can make a decision from there. Or even a week or two, or even a couple months later, you can take your painting and look at it again and say, oh yeah, you know what, I am going to add that extra figure here or there, or I'm just going to leave it the way it is. But I think this looks fine the way it is, so we'll peel off the tape and see how it looks overall with the border around it. And I think it's going to look fine, and it does. And this is Fabriano paper, so that looks good. And we'll see you all on the next painting. I'm glad you were able to come by and work on this with us here. We had a really fun time, and again, it's a beautiful sunny street scene with figures. It's a happy, enjoyable painting to do, and I'm sure you're going to have fun with it. And we'll see you on the next video. Okay, everyone. Bye-bye.